Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Susan Bernstein from the Sensational Shift, and I'm so excited to share with you about sensational interviewing. Um, for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure to meet either online or in person at an event, or you're not one of my coaching clients, I really want to say hello and tell you a little bit about myself. I run a company called the Sensational Shift, which you'll find at sensationalshift.com. And I am a stress expert and a leadership coach. I work with primarily women, but I also work with some men who are incredible high performers, but they may have some hesitation, particularly about their own sensitivity. They may be emotionally sensitive, they may pick up cues in the environment, they may feel like some internal sensitivities, and what I help them to do is bring out what's most sensational about them. And one of the ways that I do that is through interview coaching. Interviews are a place where we can often feel really nervous. There's a lot on the line. Recent statistics that I've seen show that 56% of Americans, I don't know the statistics outside the United States, but in the United States, 56% of Americans are planning to change jobs in the next year. That's pretty incredible. And what that means for you, if you're a job seeker, is it means that you have a lot of competition out there and you want to stand out. So why am I somebody who can help you to stand out? Because over the last decade, I've helped over 2,500 people, that's a lot, to get prepped for interviews. I do it every day. It's generally 5 days a week anyway, weekdays. I'm working with clients on some form of self-promotion. Today, this morning, I worked with a client, for example, who was interviewing for a science job in a big biotech company. Really a lot of fun for me to do that. And the reason that I can do that is first of all, I did a lot of interviewing when I was in management consulting. I have an MBA from Berkeley, and I used to work for a company called Accenture as a strategy consultant and then a manager, and was constantly interviewing new people to join the firm. That's where I got my feet wet in interviewing, and then I ultimately, when I went back to school to get a PhD in mind-body psychology, I went back to Berkeley where I had done my MBA, worked in the Career Center, and helped prepare people for interviews, their students. And I noticed that I wasn't trained classically as a career coach, so I actually had to reverse engineer and start to use my own skills for noticing to say, what does it take to really be a great interviewer? How can you give a great interview? Again, really the interviewee. How can you be a great interviewee? And so I spent a lot of time looking at what that takes, and I'm really delighted to share with you tonight 3 key principles that I use with my clients over and over again. They're constantly helpful. They're things that we don't usually think about, but when you hear them, they'll make sense to you. So it's not going to be like, oh, what's that? It doesn't make any sense to me. It will make sense to you. You're welcome tonight to ask questions. You should see a chat box or a box to ask questions. I will happily do my best to answer your questions. You can also afterwards get in touch with me about what I do around interviewing by sending me a note at info, I-N-F-O, at sensationalshift, that's sensationalshift.com. It's all one word. But let me jump right into the content that I wanted to share with you because I'm so excited and delighted to share this with you. It's really meaningful. So, when you go into an interview, you got to put some psychology on to think about how do interviewers look at you. And there are kind of 3 types of interviewers. One are recruiters. Some people work through a recruiter to get a job. So it could be a recruiter by your industry or your functional area. So that's one set of people. Recruiters are generally not the person who's hiring you, but they want to make sure you kind of pass snuff, that you have the basics of what it takes. Then there are HR screening interviews. The HR person, unless you're going to work in HR, isn't going to be your manager, isn't going to be working with you on a day-to-day basis if you get the job. But again, there's somebody who needs to check all the boxes and make sure you have the basics. Those 2 you still need to impress, but the ones you really, really need to impress are hiring managers and potential colleagues. So how do you go about doing that? How do you get the attention of these people? The thing that you've got to do, this is principle number one, is you've got to have a coherent story about why they should hire you. One of the questions I always ask people when I'm doing an interview preparation session, which I do coaching with people one-on-one. It's something that you could get. But aside from that, let me just say that I'm always asking the question, why should I hire you specifically? So you need to think about that question. Why should I hire you specifically? And one of the simplest strategies you can use to answer that question is to think all the way through. Think before you prep for the interview, or as you're prepping for the interview, before you ever get to your interviews. Think, why are you the ideal candidate? And think of 3 reasons. So what you want to do is take the job description apart line by line and start to see where do your skills from all your prior work experiences best match up. And the key thing here is not just to tell a story about the past and how all your past experiences meet the future. Meet the present moment, like hire me. You got to be helping the interviewer think about you having that job in the future. I mean, think about it. You're not just trying to say I'm qualified, which is what you do for recruiters and HR people. You want to say I'm aspirational or inspirational. I've already thought into that future. So what you want to do is imagine that you've had this job for a full year, and then look back and in your mind. So it's a tough piece of imagining for some people, but maybe just let yourself have fun. This is not about being accurate, about, oh my gosh, if I have a crystal ball and I know exactly. But what can you infer from the job description? And then how do you turn that around, work backwards, and say, what do I need to share with them about my prior experiences? And I want you to think of 3 key reasons that you're a great fit. And these reasons need to be something that's compelling, something where you can help the potential future employer to see you in the job. That means using really active verbs, saying something like, if I let myself think about actually having this job entails these skills, and I develop these skills by, and then name the things. So you want to actually have crafted in advance at least 3 key reasons why you are a phenomenal fit that are, again, aspirational, inspirational, how those 3 things will take you into a future in this particular job. Most people, what they do is they try to tell the employer, yeah, I've done this, 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 and this for the job that you want me to be able to do. And they're only taking you up to the present moment, like, yeah, I could do all those things. A standout candidate, what they're doing when they talk to the interviewer is being bold and saying, if I was so lucky to get the job, or, when I let myself really think about the job and actually having it, what I imagine is this. So that you get the interviewer recognizing that you're not just a candidate who, meets the minimum bar. You're thinking into that future because that's the person they want. They want somebody who isn't just in present moment, but is going to be with them, let's say, a week from now if they hire you, or 2 weeks from now, but also a year from now, and maybe 2 or 3 years from now. So what can you be doing in the way that, so some questions for you to consider is 2 questions. What can you be doing to help interviewers see you in the future? What words, and I've shared some with you here, what words can you use to help the interviewer see you in the future? And 2, what are at least 3 reasons in any job that you're looking for that you are the ideal candidate? And you want to make sure that you tailor those 3 reasons to each and every job that you're applying for. Unless the jobs you're applying for are super the same, you want to be tailoring and showing people why you're a match. Not just these are 3 things about me, but these are 3 things about me and you together. So that brings me to my second point. My second point is whenever you're conveying a point, convey what's in it for the organization. Emphasize them over you. What do I mean by that? Today, for example, I was prepping a woman for a job interview, and she kept saying, The reason I'm so interested in your company is I'm going to gain skills in these 3 clinical areas. Do you see that it's very much about her? I'm going to gain these skills. I'm going to get this. Guess what? Interviewing for a job, unless you're looking at a company that really loves arrogance, which most don't these days. Most want give and take collaboration, not rock stars who are prima donnas. They're looking, but you're not trying to be a prima donna, but you can come off sounding like one if you talk about all the things that you're going to get out of a job. What you want to make sure you do in your language is help the organization to understand that you want to be part of a team, and how anything you convey about yourself, you want to say how it's a benefit to the organization. So for example, the woman that I was working with today was talking about how efficient she is, how fast she gets things done. Now, she could just leave it at that, and that would be probably a B plus or an A in my book. But if you want to take it to the A plus, the thing that you want to do to modify that to be a little bit stronger or even a lot stronger is to say, so I like doing things really efficiently. That means that the processes that I've managed have helped make timelines shorter. We get a lot more done in a short time, and I would love to help your company, your organization, get more done in a short time. Do you see how I've just added a whole layer there? A layer of interest, a layer of I care about you. It's kind of the way that you talk to somebody who you want to persuade, right? You want to say what's in it for them. So the mistake that I see job seekers constantly doing, very naively, without knowing, it's not terrible, but it doesn't bond, is when they say what they talk about all the things in the job that's for them. So my request of you is think about every time that you're going to make a point. Remember, I just said it's a good idea for you to think of 3 reasons why you're the ideal candidate. With each one of those, ask yourself, okay, so if I'm the ideal candidate and I'm talking to you, employer, what's in it for you, employer, with each one of these skills? So here I'm going to add one more thing I wasn't planning to add that I just have to tell you. You want to think about big picture organization, how you can be of service when you're sharing these benefits. So some benefits that you can think about, and this is very much an MBA type mindset, business mindset, but it's strategic, and that is think about how what you can do can help profitability. Can you help make more money for the organization by either helping boost revenues? Are you going to sell more product because of what you do or more service? Are you going to decrease cost? Are you really super efficient? You're able to help decrease cost. So one is profitability. Another is productivity. That you're efficient, that you make things easier, simpler. Who doesn't love that? Isn't that beneficial? So how you do that. And the third is time to market. That's usually for something commercial, but it can be for a nonprofit. How does what you do, or you can do for this organization, benefit profitability, productivity, or time to market? How fast you can get things out the door. So start thinking about the experiences that you've had and how at a big picture level they contributed to profitability, productivity, or time to market. You don't have to single-handedly, all by yourself, have done those things. A lot of people think, but I didn't do that alone. No, when you work in an organization, you seldom work alone. I mean, yes, there are people who are lone rangers, but usually if you're part of an organization, you're not a lone ranger. You're somebody who is part of a team. So I really invite you to convey, when you're talking to an organization, convey what's in it for the organization and emphasize them over you. You will make a bigger impact by doing that. You'll set off alarm bells that are good ones, not the negative ones, but the alarms in the interviewer's brain, like, this person's thinking about us, and they may not consciously know it, but subconsciously they'll get, I've got a candidate in front of me who's really thinking about us. The third and final point that I want to bring across is that your job as an interviewee, when you're sitting in front of an interviewer, is to be persuasive. We already know that. But how do you do that? And you do it through stories. And you do it through stories in a particular way. Your job, think about this. The interviewer, unless you are in a really, 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 really weird circumstance, the interviewer has not met you before. The interviewer does not know all your work experience. You're trying to convey your work experience to them, right, so that they know you've got what it takes to get this job. And again, you're going to emphasize 3 key points, 3 key reasons. The best way I know to do that is to tell stories. Because if you just give them a laundry list, like, I'm really meticulous, I'm very smart, and I'm organized. Well, that's nice, but my brain says, how do I know that about you? Can I trust you? You're essentially giving me a whole bunch of platitudes about you. But if you tell me a story that shows me you're organized, a story that shows me you're meticulous, you get my idea? If you're telling stories. So you want to be rich with stories about a time when. The mistake I see people make most frequently around their storytelling is they give me, here's what I do. You know, generalizations. I'm a great manager. I'm a super organizer. and they're not putting the proof behind it. And the proof comes from the story. So, for example, today I was working with a woman, and she did say, you know, I'm really, really detail-oriented, and that was great that she said she's detail-oriented, but she didn't go deep enough with a story until I worked with her, and we prepped on this, and we massaged things, and I helped bring that story out from her. And she starts telling this story about running a clinical trial, and in clinical trials, so this is essentially how, for example, drugs come to market. A company can't just produce a drug and poof, it's on the market. It has to get tested. It has to meet different approvals. So she runs those kinds of things. And the great thing was that she started telling a story from start to finish. It was brief, but she basically conveyed in that story how organized she is, how well she thought through all the details. The story came alive because of the details. So start listening. One thing that you can start to do is start listening to other people tell stories, and start noticing when you go to sleep, snooze-a-rama, like that story doesn't work for me, it doesn't do anything for me, and the stories that just come alive for you. The stories that come alive usually have some details to them. They usually have who the key characters are. So, you know, she's telling this story and she's talking about the clinical director, she's talking about postdoctoral students who's on the team, she's talking about 2 professors who are vying for attention and competition. Now all of a sudden I'm in the story. I can feel it. She's also talking about all the materials laying on this bench and, you know, what you can see and the microscopes, and she's not telling so much detail that, you know, you're looking at the individual microscope slides and this tiny little cell on it. In some cases that would be relevant, but not here. So you need to keep the details high enough level. Your job is to tell a story so that the details bring out the aliveness. So again, what you can be doing is listening to people who tell stories and listen to what really works. And I would so love to support you in doing that. So a couple of things. One is that I'm going to make this Hangout available. It will show up on YouTube, and really glad that you will be able to see that. If you have questions tonight and you want to go into the Q&A section and ask them, I will be happy to read those and answer those as best I can now. But I want to tell you about 2 different things that you can get that if you really would like to work on your interview skills, it would be such a joy to share with you. So the first of those is that I'm doing a webinar next week. And this webinar I'm super excited about. It's something that I have deep, deep, deep expertise in, and that's preparing people for interviews. So you'll find that if you go to sensationalshift.com and go to the events page, And this is sensational interviewing skills you must have to stand out. I'm going to go so much deeper into these 3 skills plus 3 more and depth. So it's going to be a 90-minute webinar with an audio recording, handouts, and 2 great bonuses, plus time to have your interview questions answered. You'll find that on my events page. If you send me an email by tomorrow, and tomorrow's the 11th, by the end of the day tomorrow, Pacific time, so you've got till midnight Pacific, and in the headline you say, webinar for job seekers, ask for your $10 discount. The 90-minute webinar is going to be $59. You can have it for $49 just by getting a message out to me by the 11th. So I'm happy to do that to thank those of you who are on tonight's webinar. So that would be a pure joy to do. The other thing that I want to let you know about is that I do individual work with people. And the really nice benefit of that is that if you want to prep for an interview, I can usually do that in a day or 2 or 3 from when you email me or you sign up for a session. If you go to on my website, sensationalshift.com, and scroll down to sensational interviewing, you'll see what this is all about. But basically, it's a time where you get 2 one-hour sessions with me, up to 3 weeks apart, and we go deep, and you practice your interviewing skills. You get to make all the mistakes that you might make in front of somebody else, and then I course correct you. Sometimes I give you specific language that you can use to answer difficult questions. Sometimes it's that you're really nervous, and I give you mind-body techniques that you can use. The woman I was working with today was really, really nervous, and I taught her a breathing technique that really helped her. I know because I got a note from her after the interview. She's like, I think I might have got the job. So she won't know that for a few days at least. But, you know, those are things that I can do. But basically what you get is you get to send me, if you sign up for Sensational Interviewing, you get 2 one-hour sessions with me up to 3 weeks apart. You'll get my time before the interview coaching where I'll review your resume and a targeted job description so that I then take those and plan for you an interview where we work on developing your skill level and your effectiveness and your personal positioning. Then during the coaching session, we do this on Skype, and I video record it so you'll actually get to see yourself and hear yourself afterwards. And I give you a deep, deep, deep debrief of each question and feedback, and you get that documentation from me. And I will suggest concrete ways for you to improve your interview skills. It may be something to do in your storytelling. It may be a way that you're interrelating with the interviewer. It may be something to do to calm your nerves. And then you have email access to me between the sessions, and then up to 3 weeks later we do another practice session. If you need to practice the very next day, often you can get that kind of help from me. But it's something that I do, and the really nice thing that I want to let you know about is that for the month of September, when you do one of those with me, you're also going to get a free copy of my Interviewing Authentically workbook, which you can also get in the Sensational Shift shop online. I have a shop so you can buy things, but you could get the Interviewing Authentically workbook, and you can also get the Job Seekers Confidence Kit. You'll get both of those. And that's a $500 package, and if you think about it, over the long term of your job, it's a very small investment. It will help you, be much more persuasive with interviewers. I will tell you one story because I've just got to tell you, this is one of my favorite stories. I love working with people actually who are very nervous during interviews. And one in particular who I worked with, it was an MBA student, and when he came in, I do what's called a mock interview. It's practice, it's mock, it's not real because I wish I had a job to offer you, but obviously, I don't. But he came into the interview, and I asked him a first question, and I watched this bead of sweat run down his face. And then I asked him the second interview question, and there's like 5 beads of sweat. And I get to the third interview question, and there's like 25 beads of sweat coming down, and he's squirming in his seat. And I finally stopped the practice interview, and I said, "Hey, what's going on? You seem incredibly nervous." And he said, "Yeah, I'm really, really nervous." And we talked about where his nerves were coming from, and he was so up in his head. He just had too many facts and figures he was trying to dazzle me with that he wasn't really there. And sometimes we can over-prepare for an interview and not actually be there. It's like we're up here talking to somebody and we're not connecting. So that's what part of what was happening for him. So I worked with him on some strategies for actually really connecting with me, and also for calming his nerves, and also a way that he could speak that I love teaching, where he could really be in touch with his intelligence, but without being up in his head trying to think up all the facts and figures, but could be really, really present. This is somebody who, if I watched that first interview with him, I would have said, no way, he's not going to get job offers. That year, he got 7 different job offers from 7 different management consulting firms. That's stellar. That is incredibly hard to do. I've only seen it twice in 10 years that somebody, gets 7 different offers from 7 different consulting firms, because the consulting firms, quite frankly, are incredibly choosy about people. So that's why I love this work, because what I'm essentially doing is helping you bring out your best self, your most sensational self. I'm helping you make a sensational shift into your most sensational self. So I really, really want to thank you for being on this Hangout. I hope you'll take to heart these 3 principles that I shared tonight, because they are so valuable. And again, I'll remind you, develop a coherent story about why you should be hired, and make sure you tell it as a story. Convey what's in it for the organization. Emphasize them over you, and that why you two should be together. And then third, make sure that you're putting a movie in the interviewer's mind. Use and elaborate on those details. You'll rock the crowd, or the interviewer. Anyway, it's been a pleasure sharing these with you. I hope that you'll get in touch. Again, you can always reach me at info at Sensational Shift. And I want to wish you really well in all your job interviews. Thanks so much. Have a great night, everybody. Bye for now.